Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's BullCharts User Group webinar. Our disclaimer, please note that any information presented or discussed is only opinion, not advice, and should not be acted upon. We need to say that. The particular financial needs of any individual have to be taken into consideration, and we can't possibly do that. You should always seek professional advice. Col is a long-term BullCharts user and participating in our user group only fairly recently. And he's got a few strategies, and he mentioned to me after last month's meeting that he'd be happy to share one of his strategies. So Col and I have had a chat a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, and Col's packaged up some material that he's had for a while about one of his strategies, and we've got Col to lead us through that tonight.
Yep.
So Col, it's over to you. Many thanks for doing this for us. It'll be useful in terms of strategies, ideas, and also how to do particular things in BullCharts. Col, thanks again. It's over to you.
All right, thanks, Rob. Good evening, everyone. So very quickly, this has been a journey of some years for myself. I don't purport to be an expert by any imagination. I do like trading, and I really am attached to the BullCharts system. So tonight, really, the way I plan to go through this is show you some outputs. I only joined the group last meeting, and one of the things I picked up was conversation around back testing, and also having a look at how we can go back and retrofit some dates and run the scans. So I plan to do that tonight as a demonstration of the outputs of this particular strategy/scan. I was then going to dive into the criteria and the way I've actually got that set up in the scan, and really focus on, I guess, the preset criteria that can be dragged down through the pick lists, and then just a couple of the elements where I've written some BullScript. And again, wouldn't purport to be an expert on BullScript, but I've got a reasonable handle on it. Do make mistakes, and particularly have to be careful of that in the back testing. So on the right hand side of the screen, again, I'm a bit anal. I fold all my socks and iron my hankies. So I do like to keep things tidy. Initially in BullCharts, I didn't, and I was telling Rob earlier tonight that probably 12 or 18 months ago, I really took the time out to unclutter BullCharts and to really get my act together, and so I could look at and not only understand what I was doing, but to be able to represent that in a defined way in the folder structure in the scan, and also relate that and align that in the way I develop my charts. So again, I'll just open this one here first, and you can see here I use TradeSim backtesting a lot. So I actually name these the same and have the scan that I will run, and below that we have the backtesting. So it's all nicely packaged. And if I was to go into the design of this particular scan, I have a range of criteria which are really information that, for my purpose, I want to see, such as the day of the week, the trigger day, the industry and sector groups, a bit of a hybrid formula around the categories of shares. I calculate my bid, my initial stop, and my asks. And what I did send out the other day through Rob was, I guess, the trade plan around this particular strategy. It's not the most successful strategy in the world. It's not the most successful one in, I guess, 4 or 5 key strategies that I run. But it was probably the earliest one that in my sabbatical of review and declutter, I thought, well, I'm just going to go very, very simple on this and really get to understand what I'm doing. So I go through, and we'll get into the script in that later, write some simple script around working out the quantity, the risk reward. So when I run the scan, I actually export this out and I put it into a journal. And it's from there that I can do some comparatives about what might be the best opportunity by just combining the results from the scan. So that's that. So I'm just going to close that. I'll pull this back up here. What this is just a snapshot from the TradeSim backscanning log. And you'll see here these two log entries, 131, 132, where the backtester by itself within the formula I've written, actually identified OGC. Now this is the entry date, which is a day after the trigger date. So the trigger date is the 18th of the 10th, and MLD on the 22nd of the 10th, it entered off the trigger of the 21st of the 10th. So I'm going to actually just drop down a page here and show you how they fell out. OGC, now I didn't trade these. This is just coming straight off what would have happened if I traded it and left it alone and let it run. It did trigger on the 18th to the 10th. I work on, basically 25,000, a risk of 400. It goes to your positional discussions there. I look at setting my my initial stop around the Bollinger Band, the lower the Bollinger Band, and I'll show you that in the scan. So this pre-calculates, and I also pre-calculate the bid. The bid is based on the formula that I use, and I use pivots and resistance, pivots and supports around the bid values, work out my quantities, and this one realized, had I traded it, it ran in back test, and it was a very healthy little trade. I'm going to go to the chart there in a moment. And then I had a less successful one, which really went nowhere. I got in, and you'll see when I run the charts, it just basically stalled. There was an opportunity to get out had I been trading it when it penetrated the upper Bollinger Band, but it actually got taken out in the back tester under the time stop that I have, which I think in this particular strategy is about a 21 bar time stop. So I'm just going to close that now. What I'll do is I'll go into the detail of the scan, and I've just put this in earlier. You can see here I've actually set that back to the 18th of October, and this is what one of the gentlemen was talking about last week, and it's a very pertinent point. When I do my back testing, I will go and test the back testing using this methodology, because certainly when I initially started to write script, I was making all sorts of errors in relation to my entries, and then becoming better at the if and then statements that got me incorrectly in back testing. So if you look at that, that would be your latest date, which would show you the 25th of January. I'm actually going to run this and retrofit it to the 18th, and I know that from what I just showed you, and we'll actually apply it and run it. And you can see that on that day, we only had the one return, which was OGC. The setup, and I'm going to go in and show you the script on this shortly. Because I export this out to CSV file, I like to know, so I don't get all confused, what actually setup I was using, what scan I was using. So I just name it. I'll show you the script I've written there. I stand pretty well clear around the dividend distribution dates. So I get it to tell me the X date. I like to know when it triggered, and I like to know the day that it triggered. And I'm going to show you how we write that. We spoke a little bit last week about the industry groups and the sectors. I've got this hybrid arrangement in here for low cap, mid cap, high cap, and I've got a group that I call speculative. It just helps me do some comparatives when I'm looking back on, what might be a good market to be in and what back testing might work best in. I've found this to be fairly useful. I'll run a few pivot tables in spreadsheets and what have you, and do some higher end analysis on not so much curve fitting, but trying to understand where a strategy might best work within the environment and the markets. This is where it's calculating the bid, the initial stop, the ask, the quantity, and the risk reward, and then just returning that. So I'm actually going to go into the design now. Now it looks busy, and it probably is. The key criteria are actually down here that are reporting on the setups to the strategy. And these are all the elements that I want to see. So if you see show setup, when I look at that, that's actually written in a bit of BullScript. I'll go into the editor, and again, it's just scan. This is I guess the symbol or function used to say, and use inverted commas, EMA crossover, and that'll return that in the scan when you do it. So that's the script that's used to give you. That name could be anything. Friday night, if you want to call it that. And you just type Friday night in there and put the inverted commas around it. So that's that. The X date, the trigger date, a little bit more that's just really very simple. And now, when I first started, a bit of a bent for this sort of stuff, so I didn't find it too threatening. But the bull chart, the help and the help, components within the bull chart manuals, very, very easy, I found to use. Again, I've got a bit of a background on this, so I felt it pretty easy. So again, just now, so that's a very simple one again. Day of the week. Now again, I had to do some research to find out how this particular software will report on the day of the week, and it's basically an if and then statement. It's saying if the day of the week is 5, give me Friday, 4, Thursday, and on it goes. And that's how I get that. So without spending too much time on that, this is me sort of, I've got to get a life spending time reading the help manuals within, the right amount of brackets and on it goes. So just getting used to writing the code that will give me that return. There, now these also, this is just the standard script, that you'll find when you're looking. This is what first attracted me to BullCharts actually, was the simplicity of this and the intuitive way this is written. Here's the fundamentals, show me the industry group, show me the value. I mean, a great lot of comparison types to draw down here. And the way that's written, I think, is just fabulous. Sector. I'm not going to go into the category of the share. I mean, the purist could put this apart, but I've looked at, if you look at any number of descriptions, what's a high cap, a low cap. For my purposes, it's relative. I use the same formula right through, whether it's technically correct at that value is in my mind buy to buy, because I use it relatively right through my trading, and it just helps me get a feeling for comparative purposes across the various strategies I'm using. Now the bid, again, I'm in this one. I'm actually using BullScript for that. So the pivot equals H plus C plus L divided by 3. The bid equals pivot, and then the bid. Now, if I was to not put that symbol in, and then I'll do a checker, it returns me an error. So straight away, as I'm writing these through, and I don't do a huge amount of code writing, but as I do through, again, the check is so intuitive. Now, it's telling me it's looking for an operator, so I understand what that means, and I go and say, right, I failed to put that in. I go and check, and there it is. It tells you the formula is a valid BullScript, so I know I'm off and running. Initial stop. I work off, and again, just through a lot of trial and error, and I've found this to be fairly successful. BullScript straight out of the BullCharts manual. Bottom of the Bollinger Band. Low. It's the frequency of 4 exponential, and I think it's the 1.8 rather than the standard of 2. So again, it's just through research, through trial and error, I found this to be a fairly successful way of setting a initial stop around volatility, rather than, I've had more success with that personally than using the ATR. And on it goes. The ask, again, I look at my bid, and in this particular one, I'm wanting a 17% return, which I get, strangely enough, and some I don't. I know that's a big ask, but it does seem to run out okay. So on it goes, and then when we get down into the actual the setup criteria, this is coming straight from. This is coming straight from the pick lists. It's an indicator, it's a moving average, it's crossing above, and through here for the parameters, this is based on closed exponential of 12 and crossing above closed exponential 26. So standard crossover, and I just ran this one, and I've tried all different frequencies and time frames and all that sort of stuff, and came back to this 12 over 26 being a fairly successful criteria. I look for a bit of momentum just through also the close, and I'm looking for the trend here as well, the close being greater than the 34 moving average. So that's what I'm looking for there. Volume, I do look for, again, this was the momentum confirmation. I'm looking for the volume to be greater than the moving average volume of exponential 5. That seems to kick in well. If I untick that and don't run that in my back tests, I get some pretty average results. So that's where I come up with, this is really primarily about price and confirmation through the momentum that's happening. And that drew me to, and I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination. I do have the Pring manual, which looks at all the momentum indicators. I've done some reading on it. I get an understanding, but again, by plugging it in and back testing against the various applications, I found this to be a fairly successful indicator or a secondary confirmation. The other thing I found is that in this particular scan, anything in the strategy, anything less than 5 works. If I've tried 10, 15, 20, and 10 and 5 returns the best result. So I've stuck with that. I get it to show me the volume. So that's basically how I set up and write my my scans, if you like. It's about information that I want to see, calculating the things I need to take me straight to my trading desk. So I'm not all over the place in that. It's consistent. And in my early days, I was all over the shop and non-consistent and very cluttered in what I had in the bull charts arena. I don't think I'll go through and run the other one. That's probably enough to demonstrate how that happened. Just an interesting little tip too. When this first opens up, all of these will be expanded. But I found I like to close them all up. It just keeps it nice and tight. So double click on the folder and it closes it up. And if I'm only working, say, on that strategy, my current strategies, this takes me all of about, wouldn't even be 30 seconds to a minute to run these 4 strategies of a day. And I've got different strategies. I've done some work through the, Leon Wilson's books, an RSI trend reversal, and one I look at volatility where I use a fair bit of the Jim Berg application of the volatility around that. Alrighty. So what I might do is just call up some charts. And I was talking to Rob the other day about this. I won't get into detail, but I actually saved this chart out for the purpose of today. Probably for a future time. There's be careful about how you do that in relation to whether IntelliCharts is running. I'm not going to delve into that. But as I said earlier, what I've tried to do is declutter my charts so that what is reflected in my chart is what is my key criteria and confirmation criteria in my scan. Now, I went through the pace where I had multiple indicators and got all flustered and forgot what I was looking at and had all that along the journey. The way I set my charts up is my white, and for those that may or may not be aware, the pan properties. So you can set that up with multiple, I guess, ways that it shows itself. The background color, there's multiple colors you could apply to the background of that pane, or you can set to define, your own custom, user-defined custom colors. What I've chosen to do, I keep my pane white for obviously my my price and things like this is my initial stop loss on the Bollinger Band. My primary indicator for this scan is certainly the moving average of crossover, and I keep that white. I then go and look for supporting or confirmation indicators, and what I'm using here is the volume, and this is the moving average volume of 5, and you can see here that on this particular trigger day there was a nice spike up above. Volume is spiked up above, which goes in tandem with what I found through back testing, that when this goes, the volume spikes above the 5, it's got that bit of momentum behind it. It'll push it along. Now again, this is the Klinger oscillator, the KVO, the other sort of support or confirmation indicator. So there's, I think, pretty uncluttered, very simple. I can look at this and say the white, I know I'm dealing with my primary indicators. The light grey, I know I'm dealing with my support. And then my subconscious or my conscious then starts to take over and say, righto, now let's look at this closely. So I'll run this. What I put on here for the purpose of this one is the 21 bar time bar I've got on this. So 21 days it kicks me out. And you can see that this, had I traded it, would have been a very successful trade. You might recall one of the criteria was that the close is above the 34-day moving average. I actually had that on my chart. So it reminds me when I'm looking at it, just what my criteria are. The other thing I've just started doing probably in the last month is from my trade plans, I will bring the key criteria down into the memo pane. So you can actually insert a memo pane down here, and I just copy and paste and drop that in. So again, when I'm going through the scans, now that I've got it down to 4, I pretty much remember all of this anyway, but when I was very, very cluttered, I really didn't know where I was at any point in time. Some nights when I was going through the scans, and it was all over the place. But this has helped me keep on the page, and so I've introduced and put that into the bottom of the charts now, as well as the memo chart. So you can see here, it actually ran. This particular scan ran for the 21 days. It actually got my 17%. At this time, I actually had I was looking for 20%. I backed it off to 17 now, and it actually traded up and took it. Rightly or wrongly, what I'm seeing here now is that if I've been following this on the day, we've had a significant spike up in volume on this uptrend. We've had a bit of a downturn here. That's saying to me, and because this is peaking up here in the oscillator, that's sending me some warning signals that this could be about ready to turn, and that's exactly what's happened. This is a great little chart just to demonstrate the ups and downs. Now the other one, not so great. You can see the trigger point here again. The templates are set up the same. This is the key indicator. You can see the volume just above the moving average 5. Oscillator's got a bit of a kick in it, and this was the, if you like, the initial stop loss, the ask, and the bid. And I've been successful in the bid. It's coming the next day, but it actually under back test took out, was taken out on the time extension. Had I been trading this, I'd like to think, I know it's hindsight's nice, I like to think I would have probably got onto this, particularly with this spike in volume sitting down here, and I might have well pulled out around about that point and thought, well, this one's not going to go the way I want it to go. So it's really not set and forget, but that's just the way I've been using those. I've just coloured this in just to, and this is all doable in BullCharts. You can put these on, but again, I'll let Rob speak to that a bit later, maybe a later date, about the impact that can have on if it's IntelliCharts is opened up. Yeah, so I think that's primarily it. Rob, if there's any questions, team, happy to take a few questions. Again, don't purport to be an expert, but it's a little sharing of my experience and my journey, which is still ongoing. And I think the most comforting feature I feel now, and I know I've said this about 4 times in this presentation, but I have uncluttered. I do have a clear mind. I have this set up nice and tidily. I've got this named in such a way that alphabetically it runs down. I open these up and I feel very, very comfortable with what I'm seeing. That's good for what my makeup is. Other people might operate far better, being a little bit less anally organised than I like to be. But yeah, so that's it.
I notice in your BullScan Manager on the right-hand side there, we're viewing all of those scans by category. Now,
yes.
When I compare your list of categories to my list of categories, the standard ones, a number of the standard ones aren't there anymore, and you've got a whole lot of new ones of your own, and they're all in capital letters. So,
yeah,
it makes me curious about whether you've deleted some of the old scans or simply gone through them and reclassified them into categories, or what you've done there.
No, I've actually, you'll see a lot of these. These are your standard bull chart scans. Yeah.
Yeah.
All I've done is I've just gone in and changed that to a capital, just for, in my own old attentive
Okay.
mindset. Now I don't think, I certainly haven't deleted any of the standard scans knowingly.
Yeah.
I know some time back, and I'm probably going back about 2 or 3 years, Rob, when I did one of the, the updates, I had a feeling that I might have lost a couple of these. So it'll bear testing with you at a later date as to whether. Now I've done the most recent update, so I'm not sure whether I'm missing scans, the standard scans, but they look different in the category because I've gone through and put them all in capitals,
and added a few of your own as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that had a bunch of my own. This is all, as you can see.
Yep.
That is all your standard bull chart scans. So that's why they look a bit different. Bullish, that'll be all the standard bull charts.
Standard ones. Yep. And that's one of the features in bull charts that a lot of the newer users I don't think know much about, and that is how to change the category or add new categories to that list of category scans. Yeah. So,
okay, well, I might just run, run through that. Yep. So in general, this is where you actually name your scan and your category scan and the author. Yep. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because I want to search down here on the author. I think you can.
Yep.
Yeah, there is an author. Then I can find my scans or Jim Berg scans or Guppy or whoever it might be.
Yep.
But this is me going through and, as I said, decluttering, naming it so it means something to me. Where previously, Rob, I would have had a bunch of these scans in my scans, and I was forever trying to find my current scans. And what I'm finding now is just the way I've set this up. As I said before, I will run these current strategies, all of a minute it runs overnight, and then I just put them in a journal and I know what I've actually done. So the other thing too here is that we sent out the trade plan. Initially, when I wrote the trade plan, I wrote that in here, right? Not the same sort of formatting. So you could actually write, if you wanted to, you write your trade plan in this general, and I found that fairly helpful. However, I prefer to have it sitting out as a separate standalone, but this can be used for whatever notes or whatever. The screen criteria we've been through. Securities, this again, you'll see in my trade plan the watch list I'm using to run this off. Just again, the name I've given it. And through back testing, again, careful not to curve fit, and doing things like back end testing with the pivot tables and saying, well, okay, this might be better suited to a mid cap rather than a low cap or restrictive, and I would write those then out of the market that I will run the scan on. Advanced, I really don't use much at all, apart from how I might want the scan to sort when I get it out, and I might change that on any given night, just depending on what I'm looking for. And particularly if I get up to 5 or 6 returns, I will then look for it to report back to me on risk reward, and that's how then I start determining which ones I might want to take forward into the trading desk.
Very good, Cole. Thanks. We've got 2 questions in the chat box. David has asked if you scan daily, on a daily basis, or shorter time frame. So do you run these sorts of scans daily or multiple times a day, or what?
No, end of day. And look, I do have intraday. The plan I have is intraday, but I don't go beyond that. I have at times, said, I wonder what that's doing today, the scans, and I'll run them on the intraday snapshot. But no, end of day trading, I'll sit down and, once it's past 8 o'clock or whenever the data's come down, I'll just run the scans and that's that. So no, I just stay on daily at this point. What's the second question?
Very good.
On scan, yes, I have. I've got a request in to Brendan and the team, because what I find is that's the way I would like it to open. When I open bull charts, that's the way I'd like it to open. But what it does is each one of these will expand out, and that's the way it opens. So I then just got to go back. So I've actually got a request in, is it possible to look at having it default to a user-defined default, or, you know, the last way it was left when we closed it out. So yes, I have, Leonie, thanks.
And I thought I heard you say something about a newer version of BullCharts, and I thought, what would happen to all the work you've done on your manager with a new version? Would you lose all that and have to
you
start
don't.
again?
No, you don't. It stays there. It comes with it. Comes with the update. Yeah.
Oh, phew.
Yeah.
I was feeling really sorry for you there for a minute.
No, feel very safe with that.
Col, if I can expand on that a little bit for Leonie and everyone else, and I think this is focusing on your customizations of the scan definition criteria and the category names. The key thing to remember is that all of the scans themselves, many of them, each scan is a separate text file out on the computer outside of the program environment of the BullCharts program. It's the same with indicators. Each indicator is a separate text file outside of BullCharts. So when you upgrade BullCharts from one version to another, normally none of those, we call them user files, none of those are touched or changed or altered in any way. It's only the program files that are changed. So any customizations you make to things in the scans, like what Col showed us earlier, none of that's changed because all those user files, they're totally separate. Having said that, it's always a good idea to occasionally do a backup of all of the user files, and you can do that through one of the menu options.
Yeah, well, that's something I haven't done, Rob, so I'll be doing that.
And then copy your backup to another computer in case that computer crashes. The disk might blow up.
Yes, Kevin, I do. Look, I was telling Rob earlier, I have another product I use as well, which is really off the Elliott waves, and I use that the higher time frames in there more so than in here. But absolutely, I do use nothing higher than weekly. It just suits me. There are a couple of scans I've got that I look at it on a weekly basis rather than a daily return. I personally feel more comfortable because I've probably done more of it, you know, with the end of day and the daily returns. But yes, I do. I have a couple that I use the higher time frames. In the other system, the higher time frames is also used as a confirmation point of what might be happening in lower time frames, and that's particularly used in trading e-minis and things like that.
And for those who didn't pick it up in the broadcast email I sent a few days ago, the scan that Col has showed us tonight and this chart are all up in the User Group Google Drive facility. So you can download them and have a play with them and have a look at the detail and study it in your own time if you wish.
My upper band, which is a bit different actually than my lower band. I've actually got that set a bit differently. You can see that that's set on close exponential 14 and 2 standard deviation, where my down here I've found that close exponential actually that should be low, but exponential 4 or 1.8. And I found that by having this down at a tighter band, that it just wasn't reflecting, you know, the really suitable points to ride it or to get out. And I found that this Bollinger Band timing was better than, you know. So I had it's not as though I've just gone and put Bollinger Band in there and let the top and bottom band operate off the same criteria. I've actually played with that and found out what's better suited. You can see here it tracks it pretty well. If you look at the initial stop loss here, you know, we set that at this point, and I could have chosen to trail, and sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll trail. I'll get that day and I'll pull the stop up, and I'll trail using that and just follow it through. And you can see in this particular case, It would have stayed in, but I probably would have dropped out at the opening of that day, which looks like it hit it. So I wouldn't have, because I would have been at that point the day before. The next day I would have been at that point had I decided to trail, and by trailing, I would have been there. This day I would have probably still been in, but the very next day, by having lifted my trailing stop, I would have been taken out. So and probably done a bit better than what I would have done had I let it run as full time.
Cole, I've got a question. Looking at your candles, I can see that the red ones are all filled in. The green ones, some are filled in, some are not. Can you lead us through that one?
Yeah, look, it's again, there's various, I mean, if I was to change that, higher, lower, inside out, it gives you a different reflection on how the candles run. And it's then really starting to understand just what these mean. I have found, again, Robert, I've tried to simplify it just for my own purpose. It makes it easier for me to read. Where was I? I think it was that one I was on.
Yep.
I found it easy to read just by this and getting to understand the candles, what the candles mean, the close and the open. Not that I do a lot of trying to interpret a lot around the candles, but I have found that to be. The other one that I did start using was the impulse, wherever that is. Use an indicator of the impulse. I started using that. I think that's Dr. Elder, isn't it? Impulse.
Not sure.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't find this to be very useful. And again, through trial and error testing, I landed back on that one.
Price change since previous. Yeah.
Yes. And really haven't given it much more thought than that, Robin. I think that's the beauty of these forums. You asking me that question, I'll go away and think about that a bit more.
Okay.
So it's good, yeah.
For those who are listening in and watching, to explain in more detail, I guess, the difference between the green ones that are filled and the green ones that are hollow, don't forget it's green because the price change at the close for that day is greater than previous day's close, and the fill versus the unfilled indicates whether it's an up day or a down day. So a filled in green candle means it closed higher, it opened higher and closed lower, so it was a down day, that's right. And the white one is the opposite. It opened low and closed higher. The standard convention for colours of candles.
Yeah, that's right. And you can see that there, Robert.
Yeah. And all of the red ones are filled in. It's interesting that we can't find a red one that's not filled, but you can find lots of green ones that are filled.
So there's the other chart, Robert, and there it is. There's an unfilled one here. Unfilled red.
Where is it?
One there. There.
Yep. That's interesting. Yep, very good. And Cole, thank you very much for all of the time and effort to pull it together and to present it.
My pleasure.
Good job. Leonie, go ahead.
I just had a question with what Cole was showing on his screen in the greyish section of his charts.
Yeah.
He had circles highlighting different things and also arrows, green coloured arrows and whatever. Is that part of his scan or is that something he's added manually afterwards?
There you go, Cole. There's a question for you. I'm guessing they've been manually added.
Got me? Yeah, manually added. And really for the purpose of tonight, rather than what I would normally have in my my charts, the templates. Yeah. But certainly that big green arrow that you would see, I've actually written. That's actually comes out in the IntelliChart, just the way I've set the template up. And again, it's easy to do. But the yellow section I had up there, which I showed the time frame, that was all just brought in. What Robert's doing now is just bringing in a rectangular box, and you can see there what he's doing. So, yep.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Cole, and thanks, Amy, for the question. And the other thing to remember too, as you might have watched me do, I objects like this, like in many Windows applications and Apple too, I guess, and various things, you can change the order front to back of these sorts of things. So at the moment, that yellow rectangle is behind the candles. I can right-click somewhere on the rectangle and go to order and bring to front. So you can see now that the candles seem to be partially hidden. Now if I increase or reduce the transparency, make it more opaque rather than transparent, you'll see those candles disappear into the back. So there's a feature that you can apply in BullCharts. You can change the transparency, the opaqueness, transparenciness of an object like that, and send it front to back or back to front. Order, send to back.
For people who spend a long time looking at charts, I assume they're aware they can soften the color of their screens. If you right-click on your screen and go to the bottom of the pop-up, you get pane properties, and you can then pick a nice soft color. I've got my screens and my indicators at the bottom in a very, very, very light gray. But gee, it makes a difference when you spend a long time looking at the screen. Cuts down the glare.
All right, so there's a grey, and if we wanted to make it a softer grey, we probably could.
Yeah, you just use the scale on the right-hand side, Rob. Just go back into it. Yep, go into custom colour. And see on the right-hand side, yeah, you just move it up.
That's it.
Very good. And that,
save a few headaches.
Yes, very good. John, thanks for that. Yep, very good, everyone. Let's end the session, and I'll thank everyone for your interest and participation.